Welcome to another episode of 22 at the Lips. I'm your host, Alexis Hardwick. Like every episode. So today, I'm just going to jump right in. I have someone who's very near and dear to my heart. We have a pretty extensive little history together. I have with me Robert Martin. He was the pastor of the church I went to growing up, eons and eons ago. No, I'm just kidding.
At least 5 years, yeah.
um, he's a good man, has a good heart, is the master of all things puns.
I'll try to hold off on the punishment today, best I can.
Oh, there it is. But he's a great guy. I normally kind of focus on first responders and having people on the healthcare industry, but I wanted to take it in a different route today. I wanted to take it in the route of somebody who has been in the perspective of the patient / the patient's family. Because like we had talked about, we have our calls where we go, we talk to the patient. Sometimes the family's a little, to gently put it, overbearing. And then we take the patient and we go. And sometimes we never talk to the family after. We never get like that initial onset of XYZ from the beginning, in the moment, raw effect. We just kind of get there in the events unfolding. So I wanted to have Robert on to talk about a very big day that happened for his son. But before we get there, Robert Martin, if you want to tell the people who you are, what you stand for.
I am Alexis's friend. And anyway, I had the privilege of pastoring her for so many years. I've known her basically her whole life. I've taught school, school teacher. I have a master's in history, so I taught school. Pastored. I was head of school for 2.5 years. Actually, I was a head of school when this particular episode happened. So I've done things like that. I'm in the ministry now. I'm actually travel evangelizing full time now. So that's just a nutshell.
Very brief little outline,
Yeah.
besides all the other things you've done,
But yeah, that's about it. So the particular incident we're speaking of, my son was 16 years old, Noah, and my middle child played basketball for Central Private. He was a starter on the varsity team. We were playing at Southern Lab. It's a district game, and Southern Lab beating us pretty badly, as they typically do. You know, I always say our guys played below the rim, theirs played above the rim. But Central Private, and I'm telling you this for a reason, but Central Private is primarily white, Southern Lab predominantly black, and that plays into the story. So we get there for the game. I drive Noah to the game. Everything's fine. We're talking about what we're going to do after the game, where we're going to eat, all those things. And at halftime of the game, I'm sitting in the bleacher with a few fans from our school, and most of the fans, of course, Southern Lab, and they're rejoicing at our demise, of course, at halftime. And so I'm sitting in the bleachers and by the other parents, and a student comes from the locker room to the foot of the bleachers. And I thought he said, Noah needs water. So I said, okay, I'll get him some water. He said, no, he's having seizures. So the first thing I think of is when he was a small child, he had some seizures, and I'm thinking we're going to get back into medication or whatnot, all that, those type things. So I jump up and I run toward the locker room. Well, in the bleachers with me, close to my left, there's a doctor whose son played on the team, Dr. Kyle Dean. So his son played on the same team. And so when I went running, I don't know if the kid told him or not, but he came after me. So I run into the locker room, and Noah's on the slab, on the concrete slab, and he was just kind of moving a little. And the doctor came in. I went to Noah, and so the doctor comes and looks at him, and then he speaks to the coach, and the coach tells us what happened. Said we were standing up, getting ready to go into the second half. And he was drawing up some play for him as if that would help. But anyway, so working on some play. And he said Noah collapsed, and the team caught him and laid him down, and he started seizing. And so he's telling us that story, and that's not the most important part of it, because what happens is, unbeknownst to us, he goes into cardiac arrest. He has a heart attack. So because the doctor says, as the team's leaving, the doctor says to me, let's lay him over on his back and let him rest, because when you come out of a seizure, you go limp. And he thought that's what had happened. But in actuality, the seizure led on into a heart attack. And so I remember putting my hand on his chest to move him over, and I didn't feel any movement. And I looked in his face, he had turned like an ashen gray color. So I asked the doctor, I said, is he breathing? And Dr. Dean checked him immediately. He said, he's not breathing. So he started CPR and told me to call 911. So I ran out onto the edge of the court, called 911, and I cried out to the people there, can anybody help us? My son needs help, if anybody can help us. And so I go back in. Dr. Dean's working, doing CPR, frantically working on my son. And it's all surreal to me. It's like this can't be happening. We were just laughing and talking about our plans a little while ago, and this just can't be real. And it was so, of course, as a minister, I tried to pray. I had a hard time praying because I was just kind of phased out. And so that was difficult. I remember kneeling down by him, putting my hands on him, and watching the doctor work. He's sweating and he's working hard, and I could tell, it was a serious situation. And so then a gentleman comes in from Southern Lab. I think it was actually their security officer. He came in, took his jacket off, he starts helping the doctor. And then shortly thereafter, there's a nurse who came in, who actually went to her daughter played on the girls team, Melissa O'Neill. So she came in and she started helping. So I had a doctor, nurse, this officer working. And then another gentleman comes in for a few minutes and helps. And he was from Southern Lab, and he leaves. And in a few minutes, he comes back with an AED, the device. So they remove his shirt or cut his shirt. I think they cut his shirt, and then hook all that up on Noah and tell me to move my hand. Of course, I move my hand, and they shock him, and I see him, convulse. And at that point, they basically took me out. Some men dragged me out to the corner of the gym, and then I'm trying to get back in, but they won't let me in. So it's very frantic, harrowing experience at this time. And I see people coming in and out, and there appears there's no anticipation of hope in anybody's face. It looks very gloom and doom, so anyway, I try to go back in. They won't let me back in. And so I come to find out, after the process was over, they told me that they had shocked him 3 times with the AED to get his pulse back. And then a little side note, while I'm in the gym, the head coach for Southern Lab actually comes over, and he stands with me, and he starts praying. And then several of the women from their school actually come down in that corner, and they start having a little prayer meeting, which was pretty interesting, which shows you, it doesn't matter what school it is or color, ethnicity, or background. None of that matters when you're facing a situation like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They were rejoicing at beating us so bad earlier, but now here they are, praying for my boy. So I have great admiration for Southern Lab to this day because of how they treated my son. I remember one particular lady from there in that group, and she was trying to get my attention, and she said, look at me. Of course, again, I'm a pastor, but I was having a hard time in that moment. Just I don't know how to explain it. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but so she finally grabbed me like this, and she said, "Look at me, look at me, look at me." And she grabbed me. She did that. And she looked in my eyes, and she said, "Our God is a miracle working God." She said that. So they were praying inside. They were working, and I think all of it works together. Myself, obviously, but so they're working, and finally, I see the stretcher going out as they've come and loaded him up, uh, and so they take him out, and the doctor sees me and he tells me to come. So I go with him into the ambulance. So it's me and the doctor and Noah. Noah is um, he's doesn't have control of his hands, his leg. He can't talk, just a guttural sound every once in a while. Just bleh. He can't talk, and so the doctor they're trying to in the ambulance. They're trying to get control of him to sedate him and whatever they need to do, but he wasn't cooperative, so it was difficult for him.
Mhm.
And the doctor told me, Dr. Dean, he said, it's very serious, Mr. Martin. He said, I've seen, some of this before. It's a very serious situation. Said he wasn't breathing on his own, or his heart wasn't beating on his own for at least 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. They were working on him. And then that's when he told me they had to shock him 3 times just to get him back. And so we get to the emergency room, and they unload him, and there's people waiting there, and they finally get him sedated and all of those things. And um, so I remember the cardiologist when he came in, he checked Noah and he checked everything out, the chart. He talked to the EMS people, got all their information and all of those things. And then he told my wife and I, he told us, he said, I just want to tell you, I don't think he's going to make it. And if he does, uh, he's probably going to have some, brain malfunction and maybe problems with his limbs or whatnot. But so it's that was a very terrible thing to hear, obviously. So of course we were praying, and the EMS people stayed there for a while and helped with the doctor, whatever, all that. So first I want to say, as far as what you guys do, I mean, it's life or death. I mean, it's you never expect a event like that to happen, and the joy, well, semi joy of a basketball game, and so you're there doing normal things, and you never know, and out of left field, here it comes, and you don't expect it. And to a parent, to me, it was just surreal. I was just like, it's like I wasn't. It was like an out of body experience almost. It's like, this can't be real. Somebody wake me up, and somebody, and of course I'm begging, God, take me, let him live, and all of those things. So in a situation like that, obviously you need somebody who's knowledgeable, who knows what to do, because we don't know. And not only that, if we did know, might be caught up in the emotion of the moment, not be able to do anything. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have enough praise for for what y'all do, because it helped save my son, obviously. And then also, again, having a doctor who happened to be there, a nurse happened to be there. All of those things were uh, wonderful to have, obviously. And so I credit all that, of course, God too, but I credit what man and woman did in that situation for my son still being alive today.
It was a big event because, I mean, for you, like, that's your son. But like, from our perspective, you get dispatched to a basketball game for this kid who went to cardiac arrest. And that's big for us to, like, obviously I don't know the perspective of a dad. I'm not a dad.
I kind of figured that.
But and it's kind of like what we talked about earlier, like, we get called in the cusp of it. So being there from the get-go and having to see that happen to someone you love. And I've told this to my family, my friends, as much as I'm able to do this job, I think decently. I haven't got fired yet. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, so as much as I'm able to do my job in that state of shock and just that surrealism you're talking about, it would be so hard to treat somebody because it takes it from like, say you saw that to somebody on the street, they just collapsed, went to cardiac arrest. There's kind of that disconnect a little bit, but whenever it comes to somebody you know,
Yeah.
it takes it to a different level. And something I want to point out is you had talked about they shocked him with the AED, like 3 times, 2 times. I mean, there's the credit to God, there's the credit to having, I don't want to say the perfect storm, but the perfect storm of the doctor and nurse that was there and everybody that was able to do chest compressions and all that stuff. But having the AED there, if you don't have an AED in a public setting, one, I don't think you're up to regulations. But number two, and this is what they teach us, is that early defibrillation is what saves people. It's not the drugs. I mean, sometimes it is the drugs we push. It is the chest compressions, which is very important, all that stuff. But there's only so much we can do without having that electrical stimulation
Right.
of the heart.
If I could tell you something about the AED, that's pretty amazing. Of course, now we'll go somewhere on vacation. It doesn't matter if it's Grand Canyon or Christmas time. You got this 40-foot decorated Christmas tree, and I tell Noah, I said, "Here, stand over here. Let's get a picture." And he'll go find an AED and stand by. I said, in the wall. I said, "I want to get a picture by that." so I have pictures of him with a. He'll say about AED. She's a funny kid, but so the AED is so true. So we did not know he had a condition. He's hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, thick and large heart. Didn't know he had it, and the cardiologist said he's born with it. He's had it. He could have had an episode at any point, and he said typically, he said the condition is 95% fatal because when you have an episode, there's nobody there to help you. It could be in the bed, it could be sitting. You don't even have to be exerting yourself. It's just there. It's like a ticking time bomb waiting to have that one episode that takes you out. So it could happen to my son when he's practicing. It could happen at home. It could happen at any place. We were blessed and fortunate that when it did happen, it happened in a place where a doctor was there, a nurse was there, and an AED was there. So he told us with that condition that CPR wouldn't have saved him. You had to have the AED. So with his condition, if he didn't have the AED, he would not have lived. And which brings up another interesting story on the how wonderful it is what people will do, but also I think how God orchestrates things. So the school in that gym did not have an AED for a period of time, and they're supposed to have one. I don't know exactly. I've heard different stories because I heard this stuff afterwards about what happened. Not sure exactly what happened. But anyway, they didn't have one. So their middle school coach, Coach Augustine, and by the way, these are all friends and heroes to me now. Coach Augustine, Dr. Dean, Nurse O'Neill, all these people. They're like top shelf heroes to me.
Understandable.
Of course, the EMS people, I don't know their names, but all these people who were a part of that, the salvation of my son. So anyway, so this coach, middle school coach, started raising money to buy an AED for the school. And so he said, I got a picture of him. He's sitting at a table selling, sweet tarts and candy and chips and all this kind of stuff. And so he's started this over a year prior to then, and he's raising this money to buy an AED. After a few months, he had a certain amount of money, and some people in the athletic department said, you got a lot of money. You need to buy some new uniforms for your kids because, they're all, old uniforms and you've got enough money. You need to buy some new uniforms. He said, no, sir. He said, I'm raising this money for an AED. We need an AED in this gym. And so he raised the money to buy an AED for the gym, went and bought it and brought it to his office the day before this happened.
Oh my gosh.
It's I mean, I thank God, him, all of them. He puts it in his office, and so the next day is when this game is. So he doesn't have a game. Matter of fact, he has a meeting in Alexandria. So he gets on the road heading to Alexandria. He gets a call that the meeting's canceled. Turns around, drives back. He tells his wife before he goes home, he said, I just want to go by the gym and see how the varsity team's doing. So he comes in just before halftime. He's standing at the scores table. And he hears me when I come out the side and say, can anybody help? I called 911, if you remember. And I said, can anybody help us? He's the one that came in for a few minutes and then left and went and got the AED and came hooked it up on my son. And I mean, it's an amazing story. So the AED, again, as she said, you have to have those. Just recently, the Louisiana legislature passed a law requiring every elementary school, middle school, and high school in the state of Louisiana to have an AED in their gyms or whatever. And so that just happened 2 months ago, maybe. It was just not a short period of time ago. So Senator Cleo Fields heard about Noah's story and actually got Noah to go to the legislature. So Noah spoke to the Senate, he spoke to the House, then he spoke to a joint session of both promoting that bill.
Yeah.
And it was by Jumpstart Your Heart. I think they were the ones that promoting it, and Cleo Fields. And so Noah was there dressed up, and I got pictures of him. So he gives his story, this story about the AED and all that, and they pass it. So now it's a requirement. Well, it's a requirement already. What this law does actually, if you can't afford it or you can't get it, the state will make sure they'll pay for one for you. Make sure that every elementary school, middle school, and high school. So as horrific as it was for us, it was used. His testimony was used to help to hopefully save other people down the road that they'll have an AED, and because we're big AED fanatics now.
Understandably.
We take pictures with them. I've got pictures of all kind of AED.
It's a whole folder full of
like, man, but look at this AED.
It's a different color.
You thought that one. Look at check this one out.
Done on this one 2.0.
That's right. So it's an amazing story for us and for Noah, and every day I wake up, I thank God, and I thank God for the people who are trained to help save lives. And so I thank God every day before I go to bed every night. I hugged him this morning before I left, went in there and said, hey son, I love you.
Oh man.
So anyway, he was 16. That was 3.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a defibrillator in his chest, of course, hooked up, and so he deals with that.
What's like the before I get into that, when you talk about the AED, that's why like it is so important, and we tell so many people, and people just need to know in general, take a CPR class. And if not, I mean, we have the internet at our fingertips. Literally just look up how to do CPR. And that's what they tell you whenever someone calls 911 and someone's in cardiac arrest. They walk you through how to do it. So it's a matter of CPR training, but also with the AED, it is designed for a random bystander. There are pictures on it of where to put the pads on the chest.
Yeah,
You
it
press,
walks you through it all.
yeah, you turn it on and it literally talks to you in real time. Anyways, so I do want to ask, so you said he has the defibrillator now. Um, is there any like, oh, also, so the doctor basically gave you guys what he thought was like news that Noah wasn't going to make it.
Mhm.
Was there like a long turnaround time? Because for our perspective, especially if I gotten on scene and heard that he was down for 15 minutes, that's a long time. After a very short window of time, like brain tissue starts dying. Like that's a very short window of time. And like I've heard about, I've seen Noah's Noah's good. Like, I mean, not good, but like he's with it. Like
Mhm.
it's one of those few cases that whenever we get somebody back from cardiac arrest and we bring them to the hospital, whatever, it's one thing if they make it. It's another if those, honestly, for me, like those rare instances where they walk out of the hospital just because we're not there when it happens. And sometimes nobody's there when it happens. So, um, as far as like a long-term picture, he has the defibrillator. What else is he looking at? And what was the turnaround time of
Okay.
when he was in the hospital?
Okay. So that night, the cardiologist told us it's probably about 9 o'clock at night now. And I remember as after everybody cleared out, because the team was there and there was church people there, family, a lot of people there in the lobby. And so some of them filtered out, obviously, throughout the night. So I would actually go up to his uh, bed every so often, just lean down, just say, "Hey, I love you, Noah." And he wouldn't say anything, just to, like every once in a while, like the gurgling sound, which, by the way, I told this story and there was a cardiologist in the congregation who was over the whole university system. So he knows about all this stuff. And I didn't know this till just probably a month ago. And he told the pastor after this service, he said, "I want you to know that's a greater miracle than he's even saying it is, because from what he's saying is he went to an anoxic brain injury, and he said that gurgling sound is a sound of rapid brain deterioration, is what the doctor said. He said the truth of the matter is he should have never got up. He should have never looked you in the face again. He said he should, if he lived, he should have been in a vegetative state or whatever. That's what that particular doctor said, who was a state cardiologist, whatever. So anyway, back to the story. So that's all I hear on occasion, and that's 9 o'clock. So I do that every so often. About 3 in the morning, I did it. I leaned down and I said, "Hey, no, I love you," and he said, "I love you too." So when he said that, then I ran down the hospital hall and just, hey, he spoke, and that was 3 in the morning. And then the next morning, um, he had a friend from school who came to visit. So by noon the next day, that's 3 in the morning, by noon, he was sitting up in a chair playing video games with his friend. The cardiologist comes in. When the cardiologist comes in, he looks and you can tell he's just kind of shocked about it. He looks at him, checks the chart and all that, comes to the back of the room, and he tells my wife and I, he said, "I am not a religious person." He said, "But I will tell you, it's a miracle that your son's up doing what he's doing." He said, "I've seen this so many times, and they either don't make it. If they do make it, they have problems." Noah went on. He was in the hospital 2 days, and he went home. And this was when COVID had first started, so he had to wait a while to get that defibrillator. So he had to wear this thing around his chest, like a package. Well, I don't know. He had to wear that for a couple months, I guess. And so he was a junior then, so he graduated as a senior with honors, and he's in his third year at LSU right now. If you were to see him, you would not know anything happened to him unless you saw the scar. He's strong, he's vibrant, he's funny, he's He does deal with depression on occasion. Like I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, he went into AFib and of like a whole day. And so he has a monitor like under his bed. And so they check it so they can see when something's going awry. And so they contacted us and said, which he told us he wasn't feeling real good. But we found out he was actually in AFib. And for like 2 days, he was just totally down. So that really hurts him. And then he also, again, he has deals with depression when that happens. And then sometimes just thinking about, of course, he understands it's amazing he's alive. But sometimes he wonders, can I have a normal life? Can I ever get married? Am I going to have friends? All that. But he has all that. He has friends and a lot of girls that like him. Anyway. But anyway, my point is that he has, because he's just a great kid. I always tell him, I said, to have such a bad heart, you have a great heart. He's just a great, real, very sensitive, loving type person. So he does deal with depression. They did put him on some, I guess, blood thinner type stuff to help with the heart, the flow of the blood and stuff. But other than that, that's all he's got. He's got the defibrillator. He takes that every day, and they basically have told him, said, if you do exercise, if you do certain things, you have to be cognizant of a point of stopping. You have to read your body and know, and basically you can't overexert yourself to the point where you can't like speak a complete sentence or something. Anyway, they gave him some guidelines to go by. So he's probably at LSU today doing his class stuff today.
Should be anyway.
Yeah,
no, just kidding.
I have to check when I get. Where you at, boy? So anyway, obviously for us, it's for the family, it's in the back of our minds constantly. He gets tired of us asking, how are you feeling? If we don't hear from him a while, we call you. Okay, yeah, Dad, I'm playing with my friends, Leo. I'm good, Dad. I'm not good, I'll tell you.
Well,
I don't know about that. That's why we keep asking. You may not be able to tell us. So basically, the prognosis is he can live a long, normal life, and hopefully, if he had another episode, that would, be the AED, I guess.
Right.
He's got his own pocket AED carrying around with him. So it hasn't happened yet where that has to have go off, but so that's a little bit of that.
And it's such a big event in general for anybody, but it's someone that young, like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like, why me?
Yeah.
Why, and why am I even here? Why was I born? Born with that condition. Why was I born at all?
Yeah.
And of course, we try to show them that, as bad as it is, you still have good quality of life. You have people that love you. He's, except for those points of depression, he's very happy, jovial kid. He doesn't laugh at my dad jokes, but nobody does. So.
I do sometimes.
Of course, they'll just stare at me. But anyway, we're thankful every day for him being with us.
And that cardiologist had a more than warranted expression with the shock and stuff, because like I said, we have patients that they go to the hospital, and like you said, either they just realistically speaking, either they don't make it or they're vegetables. And when we hear about those stories, like with Noah, like if that crew got that story, like that's one of those, for most people, like very few in an EMS career stories. And to hear
Yeah,
that,
well, I
like,
wish I knew who the crew was. I don't know. But if they're listening, obviously, we thank God
yeah,
for them being there and helping my son. He wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for people doing their duty, whether it's raising money to buy an AED, whether it's driving the ambulance there, the training that you have, it's life or death. And for a parent with a young son, we can't praise you guys enough. You know, you know. I'm driving down the road now. If I see one, I start praying. Whoever it is on the other end of this, help them and give them the strength and courage to help save someone's life, like they saved my son's life. And so it's continuously before us. It's always before us. And we're very grateful.
um, so one last little tidbit. So we, especially for pediatrics, but any call in general, when it's these high stake calls, when it's literally life or death, it's not just Meemaw fell in the kitchen and the family's frantic because Meemaw's hurting, but
Yeah,
it's like,
sprained ankle.
hey guys, let's take a breath. But like,
I guess.
see, we get the ones where like the family members running outside and like waving us down. It's the only house in the last corner of the block. So we're like, man, I wonder what house it is.
Hopefully you can find it.
Right. And fire department's already there. They got their lights. I'm like, gosh golly, I think we're lost. But so on like these very harrowing calls, and then especially you add in like, and you treat every call the same in these matters, but like when it's a pediatric, when it's a kid, it hits different. Um, so as far as like any interaction with, I know you said the doctor that was there was explaining it and stuff like that. If he wouldn't have been there, or like in this very big hypothetical, ambiguous idea, what is something that you would have wanted at least an attempt of explanation, or like something that could have been said, or any interaction that could have kind of eased you or anything like that? Because like we have these calls, and like one I recently had was a 1-year-old having a seizure. Like I didn't really have time to sit and explain to the mom, like, hey, we've been here like 3 minutes and we're going to go right now. It was very much this general, like, hey, we're going to do everything we can. We're going to this hospital, follow behind, don't get in a wreck. Bye. It's like we don't always have those good heart like moments where we can really explain what's
Yeah.
going on. So
Yeah.
what is something that, taking all of this into account, first responders can kind of take into consideration going into these calls, comma, especially pediatric calls like this?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, we want you to do your job.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's number one. It's not so much of trying to make us feel better. What makes us feel better is you're doing your job. So to me, the way I feel about that, if you're intentional and you're doing your job and you're focused on that, I don't want you focused on me. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I want you
Right.
focused on my child. Like even in the gym, they're praying. Don't worry about me. Pray for him. Do this or go in there and take care of him. Um, so I don't know that there's anything that can be said. I think if anything, just say we got this and we're gonna do everything we can. We're taking care of it. Just come meet us there or whatever. Of course, there's going to be franticness about it because it's an emergency. So I don't think they want sit around, drink coffee, and talk
Right.
about
No. No.
well, hey, we think we might be able to handle this because they want you in the moment. They want you to take. I didn't care if they said anything to me at all. To be honest with you,
Okay.
I just want them looking at him, working on him. Everything else is
Right.
insignificant.
Yeah.
Everything is insignificant. So I don't. To me, it's just about doing the job, and If they were spent too much time talking to me, I'd worry about that.
Yeah.
Don't worry about me. Again, kindness and saying whatever you can. Hey, we got your child. We know you love your child. We're gonna do everything within our power.
Exactly.
We love you. You love your child. We're gonna do everything. We've been trained. We'll do everything within our power. Make sure your child's okay. Meet us at such and such.
And
That
that's,
I think that's plenty to say. I don't think
yeah.
there could be too much said. Um, and because when you hear the other side, like that cardiologist, and they took him then to New Orleans, transferred him down there. So we had three cardiologists that checked him, all told us the same thing. Said we can't explain. He said the truth is that it is all we can say it's a miracle. He shouldn't be doing as well as he is if he's even alive. And then they did a couple of TV deals on him, and then the newspaper, the Advocate, the lady who wrote the article, she wrote I think 3 articles about it, and she told us, she said, I've been writing 25 years, and she said I've written several articles about this happening to athletes or whatever, and she said this is the first time that I've ever written where the person lived. This is the first time I wrote the article where the person lived. So, we count our blessings. We feel badly for those that the story turned out differently, which is one reason why we're thankful that Noah has been used in the legislature to help pass that bill, stuff like that. So hopefully there'll be other Noahs. There's a defibrillator there. There's people there, and we just hope there'll be more stories like his where people can make it because of the kindness and the training and the heart of people such as yourself that do whatever you can to help save their lives. So you can't put a premium on it. You can't put a value on it. You guys don't get paid enough. So yeah, whoever's out there with the money, I want y'all to know that. So because you can't put a value on life. You can't put a value on that. So I mean, I would go into debt and do what I have to do, maybe rob a bank or whatever we had to do to make sure that there are people like you that can take care of people like us. We got to have it.
Right. No, I just brought that up because we get those calls, and especially with kids, that it makes it hard for a little bit because the family is so frantic, and sometimes they get in the way that like we have to very abruptly and honestly be like, can
Yeah,
you please get out of the way
yeah.
so we can do our job?
Yeah.
And that's my catchphrase now.
Yeah.
It's like, get out the way so I can do my job, please.
Yeah, and I understand that. Of course, you understand the heart of a parent. I want to do whatever I can, but I think it's got to click. It's got to click in us that, hey, this is out of my hands. I don't have the expertise, and they do. So it's basically like I'm releasing what's most precious to me and putting it in your care. And it's not real easy to do.
Right.
Because especially if I've never seen you, I don't know you. I don't know who you are. You know what I'm saying? And you're in my house, thankfully, but I'm taking what's most precious to me and I put it in your hand. But that's where trust comes in. That you've been trained, and that's what we lean on. With the pilot of an airplane, whatever we trust you with our lives, and there's no more critical need of trusting you with our lives than when something like that happens.
Right. And that's, like I say most episodes, that's why it's so important to take your job seriously, even on like those calls where it's like, man, I don't get paid enough for this. Whatever, but like you said, like y'all experienced, like it was a normal day until.
Yeah.
And that's literally like the aspect of this job is that like it can be that call at any given point in your shift, any given point. So if you're not ready for it, like, I mean, you're trained and stuff, but just always having that sharp mental focus.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't see it coming till it happens.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that y'all prepare yourself,
Absolutely.
and then so that the crisis meets your training, and
And you're ready. And then you get these amazing outcome stories like Noah's. And that's
it's got to make it worth it all.
oh, absolutely.
You know, when something like that happens.
Like I don't know if you noticed. Nobody can see it but us. I have little tidbits of emails from
Yeah, I
different
see that.
patients and stuff like that. Just because
Also,
there are some that like they come in, we have the call or whatever, and then we get that little feedback or follow up, and it just
Yeah.
it makes a difference.
Yeah.
It really makes a
how
difference.
precious is that? You know, that's what makes it worth it all, right?
Dude, if I had outcome like Noah's, I'd blow it and put on the whole wall.
Well, at the house, we have like framed articles, you know, that were written about it from the newspaper and all that. We have all that. We have the jersey that was got that framed in the house. Back, not in my room, so everybody don't want to see it, but
Right.
so I remember them cutting it, and so they actually wadded up through the trash can, and I just reached and grabbed it and kept it, not thinking to frame it, of course, but I just wanted to have it, you know, and we're very thankful and we're very blessed, and I hope there'll be a lot more stories like that you're involved in, and that your staff and all you folks will do.
I don't know if I want that call, but gosh golly, I want the outcome. But so if and those are all the basic questions I have. Is there anything else?
I think that about covers it. Again, I want to thank you for your time, allowing me to share this story, and I hope it encourage someone out there. You know, you never know when that's going to be your story. So, as you know, I'm sure there's a lot of sad stories along the way, and but you did what you could. That's all you can do. All you can do is do what you can. And if you didn't have what you have, the training and so forth, it wouldn't be the potential for the miraculous, you know. But because of what you do, there's potential. So I hope there's a lot of great stories down the road of other people like Noah. I hope you have your Noah. I hope other people have their Noahs, and that'll be a great blessing.
So stay sharp, stay focused, stay on top of your game. And if that's all you got, and as I end every single episode, so with that.
The 22 at the Lips podcast is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a practitioner and his or her medical director. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, guest, and not necessarily of Master Medics. The information provided during this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for your approved protocols.